Well, hello, it's me again. I'm Raymond Gositsky, and I'm co-founder and CEO of League of Linguists, and today I would like to tell you a little bit about what we do, firstly. So we're involved in flexible English coaching, communication consultation. We do everything related to these things. We even do ordinary meetings, or if you want a speech looked at, etc. We are the guys for you. Otherwise, we do translation, editing, proofreading, copywriting as well. We have recently just finished some very interesting projects in the area of lexicography, but we also do things like screenplays, right the way through to your average fiscal report. So that's us. Anyway, carrying on, I'd like to tell you a little bit today about the confusing words second part. And I have these words for you. You may hear I have a little bit of a cold, which is why sometimes I might be a bit slow, because I'm actually only functioning at about 70%. And also I might have to pause in order to have a huge hacking cough. But if I can stay going for the next few minutes, then I will. So let's start off by looking at alternately and alternatively. Any idea? It's quite a simple one, really, when you think about it. This one is fairly well known. So, alternately means in a way that involves two things happening or existing one after the other. So, I'll give you an idea. Everyone works on a weekly shift basis where you work mornings or afternoons alternatively. So, alternately. I'm doing it myself. One, and then the other, one, and then the other. Alternately. Taking in turns. Alternatively suggests another position. Possibility, even. Sometimes, when you start a video, you think, maybe I should just start the whole thing again. Well, this time, I'm just going to make this into an unmitigated disaster. I'm going to carry on until it's done and look back on this and go, those were the days. Right, so, we could go to Prague for a trip. Alternatively, Krakow is nice for a weekend. So, alternatively, giving another possibility. I'd like to move on to the difference between number and amount, because this is very confusing, and also for English speakers. In fact, I would say the word amount is kind of superseding, taking of a number in quite a big way. Number is dying out in this respect. This is about quantities. So, for example, a number is used for countable things, what we call plural nouns. And amount is used for mass nouns or volume. So we would say, for example, things like the small number of people in the factory processed a huge amount of wood. It's horrible, the number of times I've had to tell the kids to calm down. The amount of flour, butter and sugar needed to make the recipe depends on the number of cakes you wish to make. So number is how many. Amount is how much, in many cases, all right? And so we can look at it in this way. We have a number of people, number of trees, a number of books, number of times, number of rooms, another number of opportunities, all things you can count. However, on the amount side, there are things which generally you don't count. Light, salt, information, radiation, attention, stress. Yeah. Looking at these, there are some times where one particular word means something slightly different to the other. So, for example, on here, the number of thoughts going through your mind, how many times did you think about certain different things? But if I talk about the amount of thought, I mean, for example, the amount of thought going into something very detailed. This is about the abstract idea of what processes you went through in order to come to that particular thing. Noise and noises, these are fairly related, so the amount of noise coming from the street, cars going past, maybe hooligans in the street, I don't know, ambulances, whatever. The amount of noise was horrendous this afternoon. There's a number of noises that come out of my children's stomachs. It's frightening sometimes. Huh? It's, one after the other. A number of noises. Coffee and coffees. So, the amount of coffee in a cup. So, if you want an espresso, the amount of coffee is very small. if you want a latte, the amount of coffee is very small, the rest is milk, and it's horrible. If you just want an ordinary, non-pretentious coffee without an Italian name, the amount of coffee you put in is fairly okay, similar to an espresso, but you put quite a lot of milk. The amount of water. The amount of water that goes in brings it up. Whereas the number of coffees depends on how many people are sitting at the table. 5 people, so we'll have 5 coffees. It's a number of coffees. But if you think about that, this is actually short for cups of coffee. How we do it, Beer is another thing, or lemonade or whatever. They go in glasses. People generally say 3 beers, but the actual beer itself is an amount because it's measured in litres, or gallons if you prefer. But in the civilized parts of the world we call it litres. Okay, moving on. But these here, furniture, accommodation and work. What can you do with these? Well, you can count the number of chairs or tables. Yeah, but furniture is the overall thing, so the amount of furniture required in a house can sometimes be overwhelming. We went to IKEA and bought a whole load of chairs and tables. The number of chairs we need in order to accommodate a family and maybe a visitor. Okay, accommodation, of course, we can talk about the number of rooms or the number of campsites. Yeah. And for work, you can do many things. So, for example, projects within your work. Works of art, then we do use works in the plural. And roadworks on the street, again, that can be pluralized. The number of roadworks the weekend was horrendous. But the number was, despite the fact that it was roadworks, because number relates to was, and not to the amount, not to the number of roadworks. Right. Not everybody will agree with me. And this is the thing. It's a very fluid language, English. I'm trying not to be necessarily precise or dainty about these things, as other people have other ideas. And here we have paper. So when we talk about the amount of paper, the amount of paper on my desk. Yeah? Whereas papers generally refer to things like university papers. I have produced several papers for my university. Only one of them actually was of any worth. The rest are in the archives. Experience and experiences. Here's another one. So if you go to, an adventure park, you can have lots of experiences. But when we talk about experience on its own, this is about, for example, how much experience do you have in your job? The amount of experience the new Prime Minister has exceeds that of the previous one. That wasn't hard. Yeah? So that's the amount of experience, and therefore that stays like that, because it's talking about seniority or lifetime experiences. Amounts up to the experience in a package. Art, here we are. Art in general could be anything on an abstract level or on a performance level, whether we talk about ballet or painting or architecture, I suppose, or sculpture. And then the arts in the plural is when we put them all together, that one, and that one. There are several arts being represented in this. And we talk about martial arts, those types of things. I hope my voice is coming through, because the way I sound at the moment, so I do apologise. What do we do with these? Glass. The amount of glass. Well, we can talk about the number of glasses or the number of windows. Glass is actual material. Fibre. Difference between fibre and fibres. Fibre is what you find in various foodstuffs like cereal and lentils, whereas fibres are what you might find in parts of your body. They're very thin, or you might find them also in fabrics. Fibres, not in this because it's good quality. Okay, And electricity, of course, we measure in terms of kilowatts, watts, amperes, and volts. Yeah, but the amount of electricity needed to run something is what we would say. Okay, let's move on. Fewer and less, these are related, because fewer generally we use for things which are countable, and less we use for things which are uncountable. So they both generally mean the opposite of more. This is where lots of people get confused. I would say also fewer is dying and less is taking over for both countable and uncountable. But for the moment, while it remains fairly correct, we'll stick with it. So less is used for mass nouns and comparatives. We have less time and fewer opportunities than previous generations. The job market is less attractive than it was 10 years ago, as there are fewer places available and less pay. So in here I'm using less with an adjective because we use it also in terms of comparatives. Okay, comparatives when going downwards. Right. And less pay, of course, because pay relates to salary, how much money you get. In terms of what we use for much and what we use for many, or what we use for few and what we use for little, just be aware of this idea. We use less and little for non-countable things, and few and fewer for countable things. Alright. Fictional and fictitious. Here we go. Any ideas? I'll show you. Fictional means imaginary, as in what you find in a book. As part of the symbolism of in his writing, Dickens' fictional characters all live up to their names. Mr. Micawber. Alright. The Artful Dodger. Whereas on the other side, fictitious means invented and not true or not existing. Alright. My son had a fictitious friend when he was a boy. The Prime Minister's announcement of the fictitious Department of Weights and Measures was a trap to trick bad journalists. Hoo hoo hoo. Them PM with some nous. That's how we use that type of thing. Okay. Lastly, raise and rise. Here's a nice one. Raise is what you do when you lift something to a position. You do it to it. You raise something. Raise a flag, raise a hand, raise a question because the question comes up. You raise it, you do it to it. So you cause something to increase or become bigger, better, higher, or even visible. They raised the wreckage of the ship from the bottom of the ocean. Rise means to move upwards. I rise in the morning. The sun rises. The sea level rose until high tide, just after midnight. Now, how can we remember all this? Well, raise has an A in it. So you raise a hand, you raise a flag, you raise a question, you raise a child. Remember the A. You do it to something else. Whereas rise has I. I rise in the morning. The sun rises at dawn. It does it itself. Bread rises in the oven without you actually moving it up. So that's how you can remember it. I is in this way autonomous. I rise in the morning. So everything does it autonomously. Okay. There we go. Well, thanks for watching. It was a nice one, that one. I managed to get through it in the end. It wasn't such a complete catastrophe. So that's it for a little while. It's holiday coming up soon, so I might not post for a while. But I'll be back sooner rather than later. In any case, I wish you a thoroughly splendid time, whatever you're doing. And don't forget, info@lowlinguist.com, that's our email. You can like, comment or share at our usual places. Okay, cheerio, bye.